Thank you for listening to the Unscripted Dreams Podcast with Joe and Marcus. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to email us at unscripteddreams@gmail.com. Please support us on Patreon at the Unscripted Dreams Podcast, where we have exclusive content. If you're listening on YouTube, you can find our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or iHeartRadio. Thank you. Showing record on my end.
Sweet. Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Joe.
It's Marcus.
As we know, life is full of surprises, both good and bad. The day-to-day journey is full of unforeseen obstacles, and sometimes it's hard to see our way through. Beyond the norm and mundane are where unscripted dreams live. Join us for thought-provoking discussions and interviews to help us navigate through the fog and create our own path. We are the Unscripted Dream Podcast, operating outside the margins to motivate and inspire our audience. So with this episode, this is in continuance with the actual topic, ethics. So this would be like part 2. And this is, and this is more so focusing around the whole idea of ethics in a professional setting. I think unintentionally in the last episode, we kind of went over that a little bit just because,
they're connected.
They're connected. Very connected, because a lot of your personal beliefs are tied into the work you do every day.
Yep. So business ethics, ethical behavior is, of course, that's, honesty, integrity, like Joe really went over in the first part 1 of this episode, like trustworthiness, loyalty, respect, law abiding. So that all plays into the business world, but sometimes there's conflict that arises between, our personal and our business ethics, depending on the environment that we're in, because depending on the environment that you're in, you can fall into certain traps, I might say, and you can find yourself doing things that you're not comfortable with, or things that you never even thought that you were even capable of doing. So some unethical behaviors that occur in the workplace are these are some common ones. Joe, chime in if you disagree, or let me know if you do agree.
Okay.
The one I have is the misusing of company time. Another is abusive behavior. A third is employee theft. Another is lying to employees. I've been lied to a lot as an employee. And another one is violating like internet policies at work. Are there any that you'd like to add to that list or elaborate on?
Nah, man, I think you hit some key ones that I'm thinking about right now as I'm thinking about my own job. So
Right.
You can keep rolling.
All right, so the one I want to talk about is misusing company time, and why this, even though this falls in a category of unethical behavior, misuse of company time might be checking your social media, making personal calls, or overly chit chatting with what I call talk time in the work world, like things like that. Is there anything else that is misusing, that you feel like is misusing of company time, Joe?
Yeah, key one for all you smoker jokers out there. That be taking them 20-minute smoke breaks. We know it does not take you 20 minutes to suck up a whole stick of cancer. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think we've all worked with smokers, and I would kind of look at, because I don't, I don't smoke, but, I would see them, folks take their break and they're outside for 15, 20 minutes smoking. And then it's almost, in some environments, it's acceptable. And, I just want to know, where's my 20-minute break just to stand around and do nothing and get away with it, so it's unfair. I think I made a small protest at one of my jobs in the past just to prove a point with the smoking piece.
Well, you also have the habituals, bathroom users. So I'm gonna leave that to your own interpretation, but I don't think necessarily they're always using the bathroom, or if they are, they're just sitting there on their phone, probably. So,
Playing Candy Crush.
Candy Crush, I guess. I don't know if I could do that, but hey, to each his own.
Yeah. And another one that like lying, lying to employees. I think that happens. I think it happens a lot, and I think it happens because employers they don't want to tell the truth because at times they don't. Not all employers, but they just don't want their team to know the truth because people will panic. They'll start, being a little disorderly and things like that. Or sometimes I feel like they don't think that their employees are smart enough to really handle the truth, or they can't comprehend the truth in the way that they need to, or for it to make sense to them, like it makes sense to like the supervisor or the manager, or things
Well,
like that.
yeah, man, I think I'm guilty of that, and not all the time, but in some cases, to spare myself for an hour counterproductive conversation with somebody, instead of just telling them face to face. Sometimes it's better to just send them an email where it's kind of too late because it may not impact them necessarily, but at the same time, you're not going to get anywhere with a certain conversation. I'm guilty of that too. So it all depends on who you're talking to, of course. Of course, I'm going to communicate with my boss, but if there's somebody else I'm working with and they're not necessarily in my scope of work, but they need to be notified about it, instead of me having a conversation with them, I'll probably chalk it up with a bullet pointed email, letting them know, hey, this is what I did, this is what happened. And if you have questions, we can follow up from there, versus me just uh, speaking my whole ideation and whole workflow process, which could waste or kill time for productivity.
Yeah. Now, some things, this might be uh, I don't know how this would be taken, but the misuse of a company time, sometimes it's a situation in which, you're working like a 40-hour a week job, and you have to say you can do your work, and you might be able to do your work in half the time, but you're forced to sit around for an extra 4 or 5 hours a day just to satisfy that time limit. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, that happens to me. Salary job and all, more times than not. And it's not because I'm incompetent and I'm not getting the job done. It's more so that I have so much to do that may not be on me at that point in time. So I may be getting a lot of work, and boy, I tell you, like on them slow days, it's only because I didn't put out or produce. Like I did a lot of work. Like usually in the workforce, I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but it seems like it gets really slow. And then when the going gets going, it really gets going because all those projects hit one after another. So if you're working for an organization that's based on timelines and deadlines, most of that stuff hits every beginning of the month, quarterly. So when you're going to get slammed with work for the most part if you've been working there for a year or more. It's just a whole matter of finding a flow or workflow process that can help you pay it forward when you know you're going to get slammed. So in those slow times, I usually appreciate it, and I usually go ahead and try to plan ahead or try to figure out how I can improve my process as far as with my workflow. Everything should be calculated as far as how long it takes you to do some routine jobs. I know it's tedious and it's boring, but it's necessary. So, in times when you are down or you're about to be down, you can time things out accordingly because a lot of stuff in my immediate workspace is literally case by case each day. There's always some type of fire that we got to put out because we're dealing with revenue and we're dealing with medical claims. So I have to stay ready, more or less.
so another common misuse of a company time is when you're not happy with your job and you're using that time to look for other jobs. Uh, that's something that folks do often, or they're just. I mean, I've seen people do some crazy stuff on the clock.
Oh, most definitely, man. I think that that's very disrespectful. I mean, by all means necessary, if you want to do your own private shopping while you're working, that's cool. I'm not the type that's going to press up on you because I really don't care to the extent of that. But I will probably throw a joke or two or a jab and be like, you know that you could be doing this, that, and the other, right? And it's not even me just doing that. It's just more so me telling you, like, hey, I care about you enough to where I don't want to see you caught up in nothing stupid. So, it's really not worth it. So if I do online shopping at work, it's only because it's a necessity more than likely. And even if it was, I'm doing it on my phone. I'm not doing it on my work computer. So I feel like some people could be a lot smarter than using their credit card information on their work computer to order. Like, hello, do you realize we can see you? Like,
It's just getting too comfortable. Just getting too comfortable. If you work at a job in IT, can remotely access your computer, they can see everything that you're doing. I want that person who isn't thinking about that to think about that right now and never do that again because they know. They,
that's an easy way for them to just literally like kick you out the door if they wanted to. You hopefully you don't ever run into situations like this, but I've been under pressure with certain situations where they look for any and everything to get you out the door. And best believe if they see you on YouTube or something like that, they definitely gonna write you up on purpose just so they can, basically you cutting the work out for them. So you kind of have to look at it that way. You're giving somebody permission to fire you at that point.
no, absolutely, absolutely. So I want to transition into just discussing a couple stories of unethical business behavior. I think if you're not aware of the Wells Fargo fiasco that happened, where I think they opened up over like 2 million accounts. They were like these fake accounts or accounts that they were opening without the permission of their customers. And this was it was a huge deal. And they took a major hit for it. But I kind of wanted to, Joe, just kind of add what I saw with this situation is that there were people who were working at Wells Fargo, and it didn't what was they knew what was going on, and when someone would act as a whistleblower, they would be fired. You know,
Right.
so so on the ethics side, these people were working in the system and they weren't happy with what they were seeing, and they tried to actively do something about it, and they were reprimanded for it. And also another piece of it was that people knew that the people that were working there, just like maybe the tellers or the bankers, like the people on the front lines, essentially, like they were to meet these quotas, they were forced. Well, they weren't forced to do it, but it was heavily encouraged that you open up as many new accounts as possible, or you'd be on the chopping block. Now, what what I start to think when I see this is that what is forcing people that are honest to engage in unethical behavior just to keep their jobs, just to, even though they were doing something they weren't comfortable with, they know that if they speak up, they're going to be fired, and if they're fired, they lose that income, and maybe, they have a family to provide for. So my question for you, Joe, is that why do you think someone would engage in something unethical for such a long period of time, knowing that it goes against what they believe in?
Well, man, it's just like that one saying, man, you know, when you tell a lie, be prepared to tell multiple lies. So it's just one of those things where they didn't probably anticipate it blowing up and getting out of time. Like when you're doing something deceitful like that, it usually doesn't happen overnight. This probably process been happening for a long time. Yeah, you just finally got caught because it, you know, they went overboard with it. So if they're in a situation where either they get down or lay down, so to speak. So either you listen to what's being said as far as your higher ups telling you to do, or you know you're out of there, you're gone. You know, a lot of these people might be in situations where they're kind of like not necessarily dead end jobs, but kind of because they probably made so much money with the company, they
Mhm.
don't want to lose those benefits, those pensions. Like that's somebody's livelihood, that's your life at that point. So I can understand why somebody just kind of like fell along the lines with like, I don't necessarily agree with this, but what am I gonna do? Gonna live out here on the streets? Well, you might not live on the streets, but you won't be living that quality of life that you're currently living. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna follow in line. So I think it's one of those situations, and then over time they started to stress people more and more on doing these unfavorable or unethical um, acts of, I don't know, dishonest, I don't know, just basically doing a crime. So committing
Oh,
crimes,
it's
fraud.
probably, yeah.
So with them being, I guess, so to speak, legal con artists, you know, like I don't think that's something that they intended to happen. It's just something that just blew out of proportion over time. Because most times the people that are directly doing it, they by the time they figure out that they're doing something that's unethical, it's usually too late and they're knee deep. So they kind of have to keep going with it. That's usually how it works.
Yeah.
So by the yeah, so I think that all honesty, like some of these people, by the time they figure out what was going on, it was out of their control already.
But yeah, now some of these folks, I mean, I mean, as you know, working in the banking industry, I mean, you're getting kickbacks, you're getting bonuses. Your bonuses are getting, fatter. The more accounts that are opening, I mean, you have to think about if you're in a city that has 1,000, maybe not 1,000, but it's like a couple thousand people in this population, and you've opened up 5,000 accounts. It's just not possible. So, I mean, more people like, they knew they knew what was going on, and it wasn't in an accounting error. People knew, but I think it was just, I'm going to get this bonus. I'm going to keep my job. Part of what you're saying, and if they have money tied up in a pension, 401k or something, they run the risk of losing everything that they've established. So they're in a tight. For some people, I think it's pure dishonesty, pure greed. I think greed when there's an opportunity to make money, greed will always step in, and when greed gets involved, that's when greed and power, I think that's when you see the worst of what people have to offer, or when those two components come together. So,
Yeah, yeah. The true test of man is when a man has everything, so to speak.
yeah. So from just another story. So I was working as a career advisor at a college, and I only worked there for 6 months. When I started the job, I thought I was going to have the ability to work with students and like really assist them in finding a job that was suitable, getting them prepared for interviews and getting them prepared to transition into the professional world once they graduated. Now, as I worked in my position, I identified some flaws in the system, just as far as the recruiting of the students. I mean, and these were income students. Just the recruiting of the students, like the information that they were giving, the students and just their overall, they were very ill prepared for what was going to happen once they graduated. And I noticed this, and as soon as I noticed it, I started to ask, I started to ask questions, because I'm interacting with the employers, and they're telling me things that they're things that are happening with the graduates, and they're kind of developing a bad reputation for some of the things that are occurring on the job, which is essentially hurting the brand of the school that I was employed at. Because if you see if people start to get the perception that the product that's coming out of a college isn't that great, they're not going to want to hire any of those grads. So as I identified this issue, I brought that up to my superiors, said like, this is what's going on. But the focus was so much on the focus was on my end, on the back end, was helping them with their resumes, helping them get connected with employers. And I learned, I think after 4 months, I said, there's something fundamentally wrong with this system. I feel like there was something unethical that was going on, and it just didn't sit well with me. And I couldn't, in good conscience, continue to work there, knowing what was going on and seeing students graduate, not being able to get a job because there was something on the front end that wasn't being addressed. They had issues that weren't being addressed that kind of fell out of the scope that the scope of services that I was supposed to provide in my position. So as I saw this, I said, well, I know what these problems are. Let me I said, let me go ahead and just put a plan together, an action plan together, for kind of solving some of these issues that I'm seeing. So, I put it together. I showed it to my superiors. Ended up showing it to the director of the university. And they said, yeah, let's go ahead and start to incorporate some of these things. But, with colleges, there's admission quotas and, the financial piece that's connected to that. And it was just so heavy on the admissions that, once that financial aid clears, the school gets paid and the student, whatever happens, where that's it, So as I saw, I wasn't able to incorporate what I had planned on doing to improve the quality of the student that was coming out of the program. I had to make a decision. I said, once I knew because, I feel like sometimes there's good people that work in bad systems, and sometimes those one or two people are the only thing keeping those businesses from being exposed as like trash. Like they're the only thing keeping them from like falling off the edge. Is maybe one or two people that are ethical. But what I really saw in that position was that, I wasn't going to be able to implement things, and the students were going to continue to fail because these were things that needed to be addressed, because there was something wrong at the core with some of the students. And without that being fixed, they were going to go out and fail. And I see students in the community, they're not even working, in the field that they went to school for. And it's because the thing that I tried to address, they wouldn't let me do it because they were so worried about me calling employers. But I was trying to explain, employers don't want to work with the students because you're putting out poor product. And I ended up leaving because, that system that I was in, it didn't sit right with me. I only worked there 6 months. And after I saw that I couldn't, after I saw that I wasn't going to be able to assist these students in the areas that were causing them to fail once they graduated. And once I learned that, they were so focused on getting those students in, and they didn't even care if they passed or failed. They just wanted the money. And once I identified that, that didn't sit well with me, and I left for less money. But I think that story is just, it's something that, like I said, just your ethics and, leaving that job to take less money. I saw a lot of people who are at that job. Like, these are good people who have been working there for years, but they don't have anywhere else to go. And they don't agree with what's going on, but they're stuck, so I just think it's important, like we kind of talked about in that, the last episode about, the things with Dave Chappelle. It's really about, understanding where you draw where you draw the line and what you're able to, and if you can impact a bad situation, go ahead and do it. But, sometimes, depending on where you're at in your life, if you have the flexibility to leave, or, it matters is making money and taking advantage of students for low income areas. Is that something that you want to earn a paycheck from, knowing that it's not, going to benefit those students in the long run? Is that something that you want to do, is collect that check from these students that are going to be trapped with this debt for probably the rest of their life? Or do you want to take the option just to leave, take a little less money, or maybe transition into another position where you can earn something similar? So I think that's just it's a major ethical piece that, people have to deal with. But I know for a fact that there's people that are stuck working in places where they disagree with the overall ethical standards of the business, but they're kind of stuck and they don't have anywhere to go. And I think that's unfortunate. But, I think that's something that you have to understand, because like you were saying, Joe, like, people have families, they have things that they have things that they have to take into account, and they just can't leave, and
Yeah, man. With ethics, as we know, they're consistent. So what may be important for one person may not be important for the business they may serve. And that happens more often than not.
yeah, profits over people. That's normal.
That's the name of the game. I mean, see what's going on right now. Profits over people. We out here bailing out airlines. We bailing out all these corporations, but what we really need to bail out is the people that serve these organizations. Because how are these organizations going to sustain themselves without the people? So think about that.
Yeah, but yeah, I think just business ethics, how we, how businesses, when they're building, when you're building a business, if you're building your ethical code up a certain way, and sometimes it's hard. Like I said, it's hard to do what's right when, what's right doesn't always generate a profit for folks.
Very
And
true. Very true.
yeah,
So
unfortunate, but that's the reality. That's the reality of it. But that's it. That's it. I think, I really just wanted to touch on the business side of things, because it's important to understand how, you know, your your ethics can be, they can give depending on, how strong they are, or how your circumstances might kind of change, and you might flex in some areas where you wouldn't have, just because of, what's being provided to you, or an opportunity that's being provided to you. You might think that, oh yeah, well, that's okay, I can do that because, well, all these other people are doing it, so it must be okay if I do it. So it's a it's a it's a touchy issue, but I mean, we all have our own ethical code and standards that we live by, and I think it's important for us all to know where we stand on that. Even if you're, like I say, even if you're associated with something that you don't 100% agree with, what are you doing within your power to, do what you can, even though it's a bad system? What are you doing? What are you doing that's can help the situation? It might not be much, it might not be a lot, but if you're getting your little two cents in, and that keeps somebody from doing something foul to somebody else, then that matters. But that's all I got, sir.
all you got? Well, hey, the only thing I'm going to run with is the fundamental statement, or the key statement to remember when we're talking about ethics, whether it's personal or business. Ethics is a system, and it always will be a system of principles. So, what did Big Worm say on Friday? It's all about the principality. Literally, that's what it is, and that's what it comes down to. So, that's all I got to say.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in to part two of this episode 10, 10-ish, 11-ish. But Appreciate y'all listening, and stay tuned for more. Take care. Be safe.
All right. Take care.